Good afternoon. The Secretary General and the President will make short introductory statements, and then they'll be happy to take a few questions. Secretary General.
President Pahor, Borut, it's great to meet you again. We have worked together for many, many years in different capacities, and I appreciate very much to welcome you to the NATO headquarters here in Brussels. And I understand that this is the first visit of a Slovenian president for many, many years, so therefore it is especially a pleasure for me to welcome you. And let me also thank you for the important contributions Slovenia is providing or are providing to NATO and our collective defense. You participate with the troops in Afghanistan in our rescue support mission there, helping to fight terrorism. Slovenia is present with many troops in KFOR in Kosovo, with hundreds of troops, and they are playing a key role in our presence in Kosovo. And I would also like to thank Slovenia for contributing with troops to our battle group in Latvia. And this just shows that Slovenia contributes to our shared security, to our collective defense, and that shows how the alliance is working, where 29 allies work together, stand together, and have promised to defend each other. We are adapting the alliance, and Slovenia is part of that. We are adapting the alliance to a new and more demanding security environment, with a more assertive Russia to the east, and with the turmoil and the violence and the terrorism we see to the south, not least in Iraq, Syria, and the wider Middle East region. NATO is responding. We are strengthening our collective defense in Europe, and we are projecting stability beyond our borders. We do that in the Western Balkans, but we do it also in the fight against terrorism in countries like Iraq and Afghanistan. I also welcome that Slovenia is supporting the very successful efforts to strengthen cooperation between NATO and the European Union. We have been able to bring the NATO-EU cooperation to a new level. We work together on issues like cyber, hybrid, military mobility, and many other issues. And I have also welcomed the efforts to strengthen European defense, EU defense. But the important thing is that this is not an alternative to NATO. It is something which has to be developed in complementarity with NATO, because NATO is the organization which is responsible for the collective defense of European NATO allies. I also welcome that Slovenia has stopped the cuts in defense spending, and also that we have seen some increase. But I expect Slovenia to continue to increase defense spending, because we all agreed, the 29 allies agreed first in 2014, and then we reiterated that commitment at our summit in Warsaw in 2016, that we will stop the cuts, gradually increase defense spending, and then move towards spending 2% of GDP on defense within a decade. And I expect all allies to make good on that pledge, and therefore I also expect Slovenia to do so. 6 months from now, in July, we will have a NATO summit here at the new NATO headquarters on the other side of the road. We will address how NATO can continue to adapt to a more challenging security environment, including how we can strengthen our collective defense and how we can project stability fighting terrorism beyond our borders. And I look forward to continue to work with you, Mr. President, as NATO develops and as NATO is adapting and responding to a more demanding security environment. So once again, welcome. It's great to have you here. Please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General, ladies and gentlemen of the press. My visit to NATO headquarters here in Brussels is the very first official visit of the President of the Republic of Slovenia to NATO headquarters, and it has a certain message. It has a certain message to the public back home and to our allies. We've debated with Jens several issues that is of high priority for NATO and Slovenia as a member of NATO. Number one, I said to Secretary General, frankly, I do not believe that in a couple of years we would achieve this 2% promise, but it's been incredibly important that we finished with this, decline on spending on defense, and slowly, step by step, we will invest much more in a defense, not because this is a request from NATO, but because we are facing new security threats around us, and it is our obligation, it is our responsibility to our citizens and to our allies to be prepared and to secure the peace and stability of our countries. We debated several issues from Western Balkans through Russia and Turkey, Middle East, and other issues. I just emphasized once again that I'm looking forward for a meeting at the end of April in Skopje. Two countries, Slovenia and Croatia, as two countries that they are leading the process of Brdo-Briuni initiative. They will do our utmost to organize this meeting in Macedonia not to reach finally, but to make a progress in reaching the compromise on name issue. That would allow then maybe Macedonia to be next country member of NATO, and that would give a so great and inspiring signal to the whole region that there is a good perspective for the countries in southeastern part of Europe. And we will work together, and I would like to thank Jens for his advices, and he has been always there when we have to debate very sensitive issues, also dealing with Russia, with other countries, and so on. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it is extremely important that Slovenia is an active member of NATO. Nevertheless, the European Union now is much more concerned about a common European defense. It is not an alternative. It is something that could go in a parallel, and at least as far as my country is concerned, we would like to see both organizations capable to secure our own citizens. This is the most important thing. That is why I am here, and with you, Jens, ready to answer some questions if they are.
And we'll start with the Slovenian News Agency.
Hello, from Bulersdorf, Slovenian News Agency. I have a question about one topic that you haven't mentioned, but I would like to ask if you also touched upon it. That is the arbitration award between on the border between Slovenia and Croatia. For Secretary General, I would like to ask if you discussed it, and what's your view of this issue, in particular concerning the Western Balkans, the stability in the Western Balkans. In December, you expressed concern about the situation there. You called told all parties to reduce the tensions and avoid inflammatory rhetorics. I would like to ask you if you are concerned that non-implementation of this arbitration award could worsen the situation in the region. And for Slovenian president, do you see a role for NATO to play in this process, in these efforts to ensure the implementation of the arbitration award? Thank you.
This is not an issue for NATO, and we didn't discuss it. So it's not for me to go into the substance of that issue. I think the President can do that, but it's not a NATO issue. In general, we are, of course, focused on how we can help to reduce any tensions in the Western Balkans. NATO has a history in the Western Balkans, but this issue of the arbitration is not for NATO to go into.
I didn't want to debate this issue. It's not NATO issue. I cannot imagine that anybody, any country, would use force to implement the agreement, or to take actions against the implementation by using force. So it should be crystal clear that it's up to diplomacy, up to politics on both sides, with the help of European Commission, not NATO, to reach a good path to implement the award by the court. Nevertheless, it is crystal clear to both of us that this has some sort of echo in the region. As I said, Slovenia and Croatia, the President of the Slovenia and the Madam President of Croatia, we both are chairing very, very important initiative, Brdo-Briuni process. In case Slovenia and Croatia wouldn't be able to solve how to implement the decision by the court, that would have, some sort of bad implications for the moral and political authority of our leadership to this very important initiative. But let us hope that yesterday's meeting with the two leaders, Tusk and the Commission President Juncker, produced some good results for actions to be done by the European Union.
Okay, Slovenian television.
Yeah, no, Peter Žiravič, Delo, Slovenian Daily Newspaper. Just a question on spending, on expenditure. Mr. General Secretary, are you satisfied with the speed how Slovenia is fulfilling its commitments from Wales, especially concerning spending on equipment? Slovenia has one of the lowest shares in the whole alliance. Do you have any more concrete recommendations or advices to the Slovenian government how to fulfill this?
I think it is important to remember that after the end of the Cold War, almost all European allies started to decrease defense spending. So over a long period of time, we saw a decrease, a cut in defense spending across Europe. Then after 2014, after Russia's illegal annexation of Crimea and the use of force against Ukraine, and also the general deterioration of the security environment with ISIL, Daesh in Iraq, Syria, and all the instability and violence we saw close to our borders, NATO allies decided in 2014 to stop the cuts, gradually increase defense spending, and move towards 2%. I say this because I fully understand that when tensions are going down, allies are reducing defense spending. But then we have to be able also to increase defense spending when tensions are going up, as they are now. And therefore, I welcome the decision by NATO allies to stop the cuts and start to increase. We didn't decide to reach 2% immediately. We didn't, no one expects all allies to spend 2% of GDP on defense this year. What we expect them to do is to stop the cuts, start to increase, and then move towards spending 2%. I welcome that Slovenia has stopped the cuts and that we have seen some increase. At the same time, of course, I expect Slovenia to do more, to both increase overall defense spending, especially since the economy of Slovenia has started to increase again. That makes it even more important that Slovenia is also able to increase defense spending. But not only do I expect Slovenia to increase defense spending, but also to allocate more of the defense budget for equipment. Because we need equipment, we need investments in research, development, and modern equipment to modernize our armed forces. We have something called a defense planning process in NATO, which enables to make sure that we don't duplicate each other, but that different nations provide different kinds of capabilities, so we altogether can deliver the necessary capabilities as an alliance. So I expect Slovenia to do more, to increase defense spending, and to allocate a larger proportion of that for investments. And the aim is then 2% of GDP for defense, and out of that 20% for investments. And of course, these guidelines or these decisions, goals also applies for Slovenia.
Thank you very much. This concludes this press point.